All right, testing my mic here. Perfect, and there we go. All right. Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome back to my stream. We'll be continuing with the Node.js course today, and I believe it's the third stream that I'll be doing for this. Learning Node.js course. All right. Yeah, I don't think I need to give any further introduction. Let's get started. So yesterday we left off at the for loop part, and we'll be continuing at the 1 hour 10 minute mark, which is while loops. Okay, let's
We often hear
begin.
repeat actions, and loops are a way to repeat the same code multiple times. You've seen the for loop, which provides a traditional syntax for iterating over an array. We use for loops when we know the exact time when we want the loop to stop executing. There is another syntax called a while loop, and we can implement the same functionality of for loops with while loops. So first I will show you the for loop again. So we'll say we know we have let index is assigned to 0. Then we have the condition, where we say the index is less than numbers.length.
Should I choose DevOps as a career route or should I go for SRE? Oh wait, even cloud engineers sound.
And then the index increments. Right, so we have the beginning part, the initialization, we have the condition, and then we have the step condition, where we're incrementing. Console.log, numbers at index. Right, since this is new syntax for you, I want to be repetitive just to make it easier for you to remember. Execute that. Now let's use a while loop to achieve the same functionality. So I will say let index is assigned to 0, and here I will use the while keyword. So in the parentheses, I will say index is less than numbers.length, and then curly braces. So in here I will say console.log numbers at index, and then the index increments. So I'll comment this out by highlighting it in control / or control / for Windows. So we see that this has the same parts, but it's broken up. So here we see the initialization part here, then the conditional part, and then the step condition. So now I'll execute it just to show you that we have the same functionality, and it executes the same functionality. Now the difference is that we would use a for loop when the number of iterations is known before entering the loop, whereas we would use a while loop in the case when the number of iterations is not known before entering the loop. So to show you one condition that shows this and demonstrates this, we can say if we have let sum is equal to 0, and we can just say while true. So while this condition is true, execute the code within the block. I can just say console.log loop, and then sum increments. Then I can do if the sum is equal to 10, then in that case we can use a break statement and break out of the loop. So this is a special keyword we can use within our while loop or a for loop to stop and break out of the execution. So I'll run this. And here we see we have console logged loop. So in this case, we have shown that we want this condition and this loop to continue to run while this is true. And we have this case to ensure that we don't have an infinite loop. So it doesn't run an infinite amount of times, and we know when to terminate it. And this is something that we cannot do with a for loop, meaning that we cannot just use a condition of while it's true, continue executing. What
Yeah,
are the
there we go. That's
similarities
working.
and differences between the for loop and the while loop? The for loop and the while loop are similar in that they both execute a block of code repeatedly while a condition is true. The difference is that you would use a for loop typically for iterating over an array, whereas a while loop, you would use that in order to execute the same block of code while a condition is true. We have another loop we can use in JavaScript known as a do-while loop. Now, do-while loops are not commonly used, but I want to show it to you just so that you are aware of it. So previously we have used for loops and while loops where we specified a condition and then executed code within curly braces. And if and only if the condition evaluated to true, would that code block be executed. So the code in the code block was only executed after the condition. With do-while loops, we specify the code block first and then the condition after. So let me show you an example. Let's say we do let I is assigned to 0. So initialize that. Now we'll use the syntax where we say do, which is a built-in keyword in JavaScript. Then we can do console.log let's say I, and then we increment it. Now we supply the condition after. So while I is less than 10, then we use a semicolon to terminate it. So this syntax will execute the code block first, right? Everything I have highlighted within the curly braces, and then do the condition check after to determine if the loop should continue executing. So with this syntax, it's guaranteed that our code block will execute at least once. So I'll save this and I'll execute it, up arrow, and we see it's executed.
Gotcha. So I guess that the do while loop thing is equivalent to the switch case in Python. Like it exists, but probably it's not used that much. But I'm not sure. I guess. Yeah. I think I would use do while loops more than switch cases. You know. Yeah. Um. So basically, this is what we're gonna do. Okay, let's have these. Actually, you know what? Let's number as index using while loop, using for loop, and here we'll do using do while loop. Do while. Oh yeah, of course I need to increase the index. Also, let's just set index to 1 again, and not 1 0. And while index is less than numbers dot length. All right, that's working. Continue.
What is the difference between a while loop and a do while loop?
This executes at least once.
Both a while loop and a do while loop are similar in that they
And
repeatedly
this
execute a
is
block
a
of code given a condition being true. The difference is that a while loop will check the condition first, and if it is true, then execute the code. With a do while loop, it will execute the code first, specify within the curly braces, and then check the conditional statement. So a while loop is not guaranteed to run; it will only run if the condition is true, whereas a do while loop is guaranteed to run at least once. One thing I want you to be aware of when working with loops is the problem of infinite loops. So when working with either a for loop, a while loop, or a do while loop, we must ensure that our loops terminate. If you were to simply do, for example, while true for the condition, and just do console.log of loop, then this will continue to loop and execute an infinite amount of times, and our program and computer would eventually crash. So when working with either for loops, while loops, or do while loops, we have to ensure that we specify a condition in the parentheses that will eventually evaluate the false. Or we can explicitly use a break statement to explicitly tell JavaScript that we want the loop to stop executing. So once again, I'll show you the for loop. Let num assigned to 0, num less than or equal to 100, num increments, and once again we'll log out the num. So the two things I want you to consider here is the condition. So this loop will continue to execute while this is true. And so the step condition right here, we want to ensure that for each iteration, we are getting closer to terminating this condition, to this condition being false. That's why we do num plus plus as opposed to num minus minus. Because in this case, it will lead to infinite loops. So whenever you're working with loops, be careful of the condition that you're using and the step that you are specifying to get closer for it to evaluating the false. What are infinite loops? Infinite loops are for loop, while loop, or do while loop. This happens when the condition you define is always true. This will lead to the code block being repeatedly executed without being terminated. This will lead to your program crashing. How can you prevent infinite loops? To prevent infinite loops in your for loop, while loop, or do while loop, you need to make sure that there is a step condition that is continually being updated so that for every execution of the code block, you are getting closer to the condition being terminated. You have seen the for loop many times, which shows us how we can loop and iterate over an array. We also have a syntax that allows us to iterate over the keys of a JavaScript object. Once again, a JavaScript object is a data type that allows us to specify key value pairs. So I can initialize the object, const, course, assigned to an object literal. I can specify the key of name with a value of JavaScript or beginners, comma, then I can add duration, 3 hours, and sections, 7. I can end with a semicolon. Now, if I wanted to display each property or key of this object, I would need to do the following. Console.log, then I can access it through dot notation, course.name. I can also access the value through square bracket notation by do console.log, then course, square brackets, and then as a string, pass in duration.
In 2023, if you are not using AI for your creating your PowerPoints, then your
And the last property, console.log, course.sections. Save it. Then I run it in the panel, node, control flow.js, and this displays all the values. Now this is fine since we only have 3 properties, but let's say this object had 30 properties. Then this process would be inefficient. So we want to reduce our code's duplication and make it clear and easy to read by using a for in loop. So I can comment this out. So the for in loop is used with JavaScript objects to allow us to iterate over the JavaScript object and get access to the keys. So value for, and I can name it const key in course. So I can name this variable whatever I want, and then we specify the object that we want to iterate over. Then I'll output it console.log, of course, and then using square bracket notation, I'll specify the key. So then I'll output it, and I get the same result.
Alright, let's write that down or code that out rather. So for loop, remove that hyphen. Just adjust my seat here. All right. right? Wait.
What is the for in loop and when would you use it? The for in loop is used to iterate through the keys of a JavaScript object. You would use it when you want to efficiently iterate through the object and access its value. In the case when we are simply looping over the elements of an array, it can be bothersome to always have to write the traditional for loop. Once again, I'll show you the execution of that. So I initialize an array with 5 elements, then the traditional for loop, index.nondays.lane, index increments, console.log, and then we have numbers, and we access it by its index with the bracket notation. Let's execute this, clear it, go up again to execute each element of the array. So this is a lot of syntax to write. In this case, it's not needed because we are simply accessing the elements of the array. We would need this in the case if we were using this index variable for some other use case. So since we're not commented out, highlight it and do command / or control / if you're on Windows. So if we simply need to access the element, we can use a different syntax called the for of syntax. And this is used for when iterating over an array. So once again, we use the for keyword, and I can say let element of numbers. So in this case, we use of.
Oh yeah, now I remember. I think it was that we use a for of loop when it's arrays, and we use a for in loop when it's object.
And this iterates over the elements of the array. Now in this case, I use the variable element. You can name this whatever you want. You can call it numbers, for example. But I like naming the element. And also I use the let keyword for this being a variable.
Let me just confirm that for in versus for of. Yeah, there's also for each. Right, let's just let's just take a look at that. Yep, this is basically kind of like a range equivalent, isn't it? Right. For of and for in. Yeah. This was another question that I had, right? Like, why do we need for of and for each is that for an array, you know? For of it loops over the values, for in loops over the keys. So I guess an array in JS is an object, right? Like it's yeah, but that's the way it is. So is that when I use a for in loop in an array, it would give me the keys. We can first test it out. Can't stop it, yeah. Alright, that makes the yeah. So the difference on using for each and for of is that for of can be broken, whereas the for each method can't. So okay, let's go ahead and write for of loop here. We'll just do it for actually, can you do the reverse? Let's test it out. Let's do it the normal way right now. So for let number of numbers console.log yeah, let's see. Right, and what happens if we use a foreign loop? And my guess is it prints out the index or indices, right? I guess that's the plural of index. Yeah, let's try it out. See if it gives us the index or not. And it does, it gives us the index from 0 all the way to 6. Okay, in that case, how about we use a for off loop in object? What happens then? I'm gonna guess that either it runs into an error or it gives us the value as such. So let's see what it does. Wait, I have to use a for off, right? Sorry. See. Hmm. So using vanity, it is an off and not an in. So okay. Course is not iterable. Okay, it runs into an error. Okay, let's remove this. So we have a for n loop. In loop is used for an object and off loop is used for an array. You can also use for each, but in for each you can't break out of the loop.
You could also have it be a const since we're not changing it. I'll name it as let, and then I'll console.log it. Clear this out, and then iterate and get the same result. What is the for of loop? The for of loop is a special syntax in JavaScript that allows us to easily iterate over an array. For each iteration, we get access to the element. You would use the for of loop over the traditional for loop in the case when you don't need to use the index that you're currently iterating on. Break and continue statements. So when working with loops, there may be specific conditions when we want to stop execution. The break statement means to break out of the loop's execution, and we would use this to terminate the execution of a loop. So this can be used for all the different loops that we've covered so far, which include the for loop, the while loop, the do while loop, the for in loop, and the for of loop. Let me show you an example of each. For the for loop, we can say let I is assigned to 0, I is less than 10, and I increments. Now we can say if I, we'll say I is equal to 5, curly braces, then we'll say break. So this exits the loop when I is 5. So otherwise we want to console log it. Console.log I, and let's execute it. Clear this out, I'll go up, and let's execute each of the expected values, and stops execution once I is equal to 5. So I'll close this out, and I'll comment it out. Command forward slash, control forward slash. Now I'll show you the same process with a while loop. So I can say let I is assigned to 0, while I is less than 10. If I is equal to 5, then we use break, right? Exit the loop when it's equal to 5. Otherwise, console.log. And since we're using a while loop, we need to make sure that we increment I, right? We get it to where it stops execution, so we don't get an infinite loop. So let's open up the panel again, view, appearance, and panel, and I'll clear it with Command and K or Control and K. We'll go up with up arrow and execute it and get the same expected result. Now I'll continue showing you for the other loops. Let's consider a do while loop. So let's say let I is assigned to 0. Now we use our do keyword and specify our code block within the curly braces. We'll specify our condition, so if I is equal to 5, we strict equality. And once again, the break statement. Otherwise, we console log I, and we need to make sure that we increment I, so we don't get an infinite loop. Now we specify our condition after, so while I is less than 10, we continue looping. So open up our panel again, clear it out. Same expected result, right? So let's do our for in. The for in syntax is used with objects. So I can say const, and I'll just call this object, and I'll just specify it on one line. So we'll say the first key is A, and the value is 1. Then we'll say B, 2, and C, and 3. And I'll just add a semicolon at the end here. Now I can do for let key.
If you want to become a pro Python developer without having any prior knowledge on the subject,
In object. Now I can name this whatever I want, and I can also use a const if I want it, but I'm going to keep it a let, and I can check if the key is equal to B, for example. So when we're working with objects, each of these keys, in this case it would be A, B, and C, are internally represented as strings. So if the key is equal to B, then I'll break out. Otherwise, I want to console log it. So I'll say console.log the object at that key. So let's open up the panel and let's run it. So here we see it executes the value of 1, which is the value associated with the key A. So I'll close this out and comment it out. Our last one is our for of loop, and it's used for iterable objects. So this includes arrays and strings. So I can do const array is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'll say let element of array if element is equal to 3, strict equality. Then I can break out. Otherwise, I will console log it. Open up the panel and we'll execute it again. So we get the values of 1 and 2, and once the element is equal to 3, then we stop execution. So I'll clear everything out. Let's remove everything. Now let's talk about the continue statement. So the continue statement means that you want to skip the current iteration of the loop and proceed to the next iteration. And once again, this can be used for all the different loops that we've considered so far, and I'll show you an example for each. So repetition is good because it really drills the syntax into your memory. So we'll say for I is equal to 0, while I is less than 10, and I increments. Now we'll say if I is modulo 2 equal to 0. So I'll explain what this means. So the modulo operator, which I covered earlier, this finds the remainder of division. So in this case, the remainder of dividing by 2, if that is equal to 0,
Is
this checks
even,
if
right?
a element or if a value is even, then in this case, I'll specify that I want to continue, meaning that I want to skip this current iteration and move to the next one. So then I'll console log. In the other case, all right. So another way to think of the continue statement, you can think of it as if it were skip. That's actually not a keyword in JavaScript, but that's the way you can think about it to better understand its purpose. Skip the current iteration and move to the next one. So I'll open up the panel and we'll execute it. And so in this case, we expect only odd numbers to be displayed since we're skipping over all the even numbers. So it's again only displays the odd numbers because we're using the modulo operator, right, which gets the remainder of the division. So I'll comment this out. Now I'll show you the continue statement in the context of a while loop. Say let I is assigned to 0, while I is less than 10. Well, I'll say I increments, and if I modulo 2, right, so strict equality 0. So if that is even, then I want to skip to the next iteration. Otherwise, I'll console log it. Console log I, open up the panel, and let's display it. And it displays only the odd numbers as expected. So I'll comment this out. Now let's consider a do while loop. So I'll say let I size 0, do, curly braces, I increments, if I modulo 2, 0, and continue. Otherwise, log it out. and we specify our conditional, I is less than 10. So I'm showing you the different way of doing it, of using the continue statement for all the different loops we've covered so far. Right, same result, only displaying the odd values. Now, in the context of the for in loop, once again, for in is used with objects. I can specify const object, the curly braces, the key of A maps to the value of 1, then B and 2, let's say C and 3, and D and 4. And I'll add a semicolon here, and I'll iterate over it. So we have 4, let key in object. Now, in this case, if the object, the key, right, so now we're checking the value, mod 2 is 0. Well, in this case, we'll want to continue it, right? So we want to skip over all the even numbers. Otherwise, we'll console.log the object at the key. So we'll only display the odd numbers in this case. So with the panel, run it again, only the odd values in our object. We'll comment it out. And our last example is for which is used for iterating over objects like arrays and strings. I'll specify constant array is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we'll say let element of our array. Now, if the element, mod 2, is equal to 0, right, the remainder of the division is equal to 0, then we know that it's even. And we want to continue, meaning that we want to skip over that. Otherwise, we'll log it out. Log element. So let's open up the panel and we'll run it. Only the odd numbers in this case. So you can use the continue keyword like a skip keyword. And it skips over the current iteration and goes to the next iteration of the loop. What is the break keyword used for?
To break a loop.
The break keyword is used when dealing with control flow in for loops or in switch case statements. So when JavaScript encounters the break statement within one of these structures, it will stop the execution for that associated for loop or switch case statement. What is the continue keyword used for?
Skip
The
iteration.
continue keyword can be used within for loops or while loops. So when JavaScript encounters this keyword, it will skip the current iteration of that for loop and skip on to the next iteration. Implement a function that accepts 2 numbers and return
The maximum number. All right. Okay. So I guess we'll take these as da, 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 da. Yeah. I mean, let's just. Should I create a folder or we'll just take a look at the chapters and then we'll decide, I guess. There are many. There are many exercises here. We'll just put them in the main folder. So max numbers.js. Not defined. Okay, function max numbers. So let me try to do this without using VS Code's autocomplete. So max numbers, let's have let's say num1 and num2. Is there type end in JS? Type in Node? I guess there wouldn't be because or maybe there is. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Let's just. How do you write? How do you write docs and JS and Node.js for your function? Oh, all right. Okay. And a thing I noticed with JS is that you write the docs outside the function, and I believe VS Code picks that up. Oh no, it's not what I needed. I guess I didn't copy it correctly. So here I guess we add the summary. So returns the maximum of 2 numbers. Number num1, the first. Okay, I guess I don't have to write some of the code for this. I mean docs for this is already written. Returns the largest of the 2 numbers. Okay, so let's use an if statement. If num1 is greater than num2, then return num1, else by default just return num2. And even if they're equal, it doesn't matter whether we return num1 or num2 since they're both equal. So this should work 12. And let's just see if when I write max numbers does, oh yeah, VS Code picks up the documentation, all right. Returns the maximum of two numbers, returns the largest of two numbers. Great. So let's just test our function. Testing our function. Let's see. Should return 1, 2, 3. So okay, great. What's the next exercise?
Turns the maximum number.
किसी भी मल्टीबैगर बनाने का आपको 2 गुना बनाना है, 10 गुना बनाना है, 50 गुना बनाना है, फॉर्मूला
The function keyword, and we'll name it max num. Now we need to take in two, so I can say 2 and 1. So we expect 2 to be.
Oh yeah, I could have used a ternary operator too. Never mind.
So execute it, and the maximum value is displayed. Implement a function to accept a number as a parameter, then return the string fizzbuzz if that number is divisible by 3 and
Alright, yeah, fizzbuzz, it's like the hello world of function. Like when you learn a function, it's the hello world equivalent, right? Of function exercises. Okay, I just adjust my camera here. Well, implement a function that accepts a number, return fizzbuzz if divisible by 3 and 5. Other words, divisible by 15, return fizz. If only divisible by 3, return buzz. Or return the original number. Right, okay. Can I use switch case statements here? Try to implement it with switch case if we can do that. Okay. Let me just create a new file, fizzbuzz.js. So let's just copy over what we have written for max numbers. Num number to evaluate. Returns number. I don't know if this would work in regards to documentation, but let's see. So returns number if returns num. I mean, let's just do runs fizzbuzz on number and returns value. Okay. So let's just call the function fizzbuzz and just accept num. Let's try to use switch case. I'm not sure if it would work though, but let's see. So if num if it's divisible, right? So if num modulus 15 equals 0, how what was the syntax? Switch case. We have switch and then we have case 1, 2, 3 and default, right? We switch something num. Guess we have something like, I will take a look at the syntax again. One sec. Event function. Okay, let's just switch. All right, we do it like this. Okay. Now I remember. Yep. I'm not sure if we can actually use switch. I mean, switch case, because if we do switch roll, basically this is for to check if it. Or maybe we can do Nah, I don't think switch case is suitable for this scenario. Let's just take two. And is a ternary operator. No, I don't think we can use a ternary operator either, right? Or maybe actually, can we use a ternary operator? How about we do so if the oops, all right. Yeah, I got my headphones stuck in my yeah, the spec thing was like pushing against my ear and it was a bit painful. Anyhow, so if the number is divisible by both 3 and 5, we return first bus, right? I guess we'll have to just take two normal if else statements for this one. So if num is the person's sign here. Yeah, there we actually that's better. I forgot. Like I have an RGB keyboard and I'm just not turning on the lights and yeah, not turning on the RGB actually. Speaking of lights, it's getting dark. Let me turn on the lights here. All right, so back and so if it's divisible by 15, return this bus. Else if number is divisible by 5, return this. Else if number is I know we have to do equal 0. We'll do that. We'll enter that. Return bus. Else return number. I think this should work, and yeah, this should work. And 5 or return fizz. Oh, I should return fizz if it's divisible by 3, and I got this the other way around. Fix that. So 5 return bus fizz and else return the number. So let's call fizz bus is a document. I'm just checking whether in max numbers it return. It doesn't show you what the return type is. We just yeah. No, this is the okay. So what if does it say number or string? Yeah, it does. It does say number or string. Wait. So let's give it. Let's test with 50. That should produce fizz. Let's do 30 should give us fizz buzz, and 9 should give us just buzz, right? No, sorry. 9 should give us fizz, and 50 should give us buzz, and 30 should give us fizz buzz, and not 5, not 6, as 7 is a prime, so this should just return 7. Right, let's try running and see what we get as our output. So this return bus, fizz 7.
and 5. Or return the string fizz if it's only divisible by 3 and not 5. Or return the string buzz if it's only divisible by 5. Now, if the number is not divisible by 3 or 5, then just return the original number. Then a number. Then you call them, well, the number is by 3 with the console.
Hey guys! Today we're going to learn how to add this scrolling animation to your website in
So we're expecting fizz buzz to be the result. We get the expected result. So now we'll say if it's 9, then we expect fizz. So for the next exercise, I want you to create a function that takes in an array as a parameter and iterates through all the elements of the array, displaying all the even numbers.
Wait, what?
So for the next exercise, I want you to create a function that takes in an array as a parameter and iterates through all the elements of the array, displaying all the even numbers.
Displaying gotcha. So maybe we'll call it log even and log odd. Alright, so let's call the file even or odd.js. Like the call it, just copy over this. Oh no, this should be an array numbers, a list of numbers, returns. Actually, it doesn't return anything. Prints all the even numbers in array. Log even, and let's also have log odd. All right, and let's just define numbers around here. We'll just have random numbers here. All right, so testing our function, or this should be functions, right? We have to. So log even numbers, give it numbers, and let's see. Can you be more specific? Like do something like yeah, I think that. Oh, of course, I need to change this to numbers, right? Yes, you can't. You have to be. Huh. No, it says any array. And what if I do array of numbers? Is it array of number? Yeah, I guess you have to just do array here. Then numbers, a list of numbers, and we'll remove this. Then what else do we have to look out for? We can just write the code here now. So we use a for of loop here. So for let number of numbers if number, or let's have the condition inside our brackets here. So if number is even, Then we just log number, and here we'll have the opposite. So we'll just put not equal to 0 here, right? Hence that would mean it's the odd number, and we log the odd number there. This should work. Let's test it out. Oh, I can see that our viewer count is up now. It's at 3. Hi to whoever's watching. Thank you for being here. So let's run this file. Okay, what happened? Oh, of course, I think I will remove the. Oh, that's weird. Line 7, okay. Yeah, not sure what happened there, but I guess I didn't save the file. Maybe that's the reason. Okay, anyhow, it's working now, I believe. These are all the even numbers in the list, and these are all the odd numbers in the list. Great. And yeah, the reason it's printing out undefined is because by default the function returns undefined in Node.
So let's implement our function. We'll call it function, and I'll call it display even numbers. And I'll just call it an array as the name of the parameter variable. Now what I want to do is utilizing a for loop. So since it's an array, I can use for, and I'll say const element, we'll call it number of array. Then I can check if the number is divisible by 2 by using the modulo operator, by using the not equal based on condition, execute the code within the specified code block within the curly braces. We also have switch case statements to determine which code to execute based on equality. We covered the traditional for loop, while loops, do while loops, the potential problem of infinite loops, which we want to avoid. We covered for in loops for iterating over the keys of a JavaScript object. We covered the for of loop for iterating over an array. We also have the break statement to terminate a loop or switch case statement, and the continue statement, which skips the current iteration and moves on to the next iteration of a loop. Great job on completing the section, and with practice, all the syntax will become second nature. So you know that objects are a way to store key value pairs. They allow us to group together state and behavior that's highly related. The benefit is that we can group together highly related variables and even group functions within it. So using the object literal syntax, I'll say const dog. Our curly braces creates an object literal. Now I can add a key, so I'll say name with the value max. I'll say breed, which is dachshund. Age, say 5. Weight in pounds, which is 12. So far we've only stored key value pairs representing properties. So we can also add our own functions. Let's say eat.
Hi, I took more than 300 interviews when I worked for Facebook. 80% of people I interviewed for problem solving failed the interview.
And we'll say a function. So this is an anonymous function here, and I'll say console.log chomp. So that's one way of adding function. We can group together highly related variables. So you know that objects are a way to store key value pairs. They allow us to group together state and behavior that's highly related. The benefit is that we can group together highly related variables and even group functions within it. So using the object literal syntax, I'll say const dog. Our curly braces creates an object literal. Now I can add a key, so I'll say name with the value max. I'll say breed, which is dachshund. Age, say 5. Weight in pounds, which is 12. So far we've only stored key value pairs representing properties. So we can also add our own functions. Let's say eat, and we'll say a function. So this is an anonymous function here, and I'll say console.log chomp. So that's one way of adding function. Now there's another syntax, so we can just add the name of the method, console.log. And so when we have a function within an object, we call it a method. So here we are encapsulating state and behavior. So encapsulation involves grouping together data and the methods that manipulate the data into a single unit while hiding or extracting away the internal details from outside interference or misuse. What is the purpose of JavaScript and the methods that manipulate the data into a single unit while hiding or extracting away the internal details from outside interference or misuse?
Gotcha.
What is the purpose of JavaScript objects? JavaScript objects store key value pairs. Their purpose is to store state and behavior. State is represented by properties, and behavior is represented by functions within the object. When we specify a function within an object, we call it a method. So if we were to create another object with the same properties and methods as the dog object, we would have to copy and paste. So I'll show you an example of that. Let's say I copy all this and paste it here, and let's say I call it another dog, and the name, let's give it a name of Marley. Let's say the breed is a chocolate lab. The age, let's say, is 3, and let's say the weight in pounds is 60. So this leads to code duplication, which becomes hard to maintain once our application begins to grow. So I'm going to comment this out. So far, we've been using functions to perform some operation and return a primitive value, that value being a number, a string, or a Boolean value. But we can also use functions to return an object. So here's an example of how we do that to reduce our code duplication and our need to copy and paste. Create a new function, and I'll call it getDog. Now I'll specify parameters, which allow me to customize the properties for a dog object. So I'll call it name, the breed, the age, and the weight in pounds. So what I'll do here is I'll return an object literal with the same properties as this dog object. So I'll give it a name. So the key is name, and the value is the parameter variable, like the argument that we pass in. We'll have the breed, we'll have the age, the weight in pounds, and then the same methods. So you can use other syntax actually, just to clean it up. Console.log, and the last method, log. So we've now created a function where by passing in the arguments to these parameter variables will allow us to get a dog object. So if we wanted to create this exact object, I can say, move back up, const, I'll call it another dog, equals get dog. We'll pass in the name, Marley, the breed, chocolate lab, age, 3, and 60. So rather than having to duplicate all this code and copy and paste it, we can instead get that same functionality all in one line by using a reusable function. One more thing I want to show, we see that we do have duplication here in our function because we're using the same key and value which have the same exact name. So when you have this in JavaScript, we have syntactic sugar which allows us to clean up our code. So JavaScript is able to look at this and know that the key and the value have the same name. So it only works.
Oh, right. That's I didn't know that existed. That's great.
We have duplication here in our function because we're using the same key and value which have the same exact name. So when you have this in JavaScript, we have syntactic sugar which allows us to clean up our code. So JavaScript is able to look at this and know that the key and the value have the same name. So it's only
So I mean, are there sets in JavaScript like I guess not.
the key and this parameter that we're supplying to it is the same. So let's output it out, console.log, I'll call it another dog. So outputting that object, I'll do node objects.js, and I can output and see the properties and the method. What are factory functions? Factory functions provide an efficient way for us to create a new object. Now, the name of the function will use camel case notation and can accept parameter variables. These parameter variables can help customize the values of the object being returned. The benefit is that it reduces code duplication and the need to copy and paste. So we know that the object literal syntax using curly braces creates one object, and then we can use factory functions to easily create multiple objects. Factory functions is not the common way of achieving this, rather we use constructor functions. The purpose of the constructor function is to construct the initial state of an object. When creating a constructor function, we use Pascal notation, whereas we would use camel case notation for variables and function names. Constructor functions use a special keyword called this, which references the object that's calling this code. So when you see the keyword this, you can think of it as this current object. So the naming convention for constructor functions is to have the name of it be a noun rather than a verb. Let's show an example of a constructor function. We use the function keyword, and we name it a noun. So I'll name it dog. I'll specify the parameter variables, so name, breed, age, and weight in pounds. So if I compare the differences.
Right, I'll just take a 5-minute break and I'll be back. I'll see ya. All right, I am back. So I think I'll end the stream here since the next part is all related, and I might as well just start it as a new in a new stream. So with that, I guess I'll be ending the stream. We've reached the I'll start from the 1 hour 40 minute mark from tomorrow. So yeah, with that I'll be ending the stream. So yeah, I'll see you on the next one.